Hi, everyone. Welcome to our podcast, Discover AIG Multinational Latin America. I'm Alan Rodriguez, Regional Multinational Client Executive and Global Fronting Underwriter for Latin America. Do you want to know more about captives today? Stay tuned. Today's episode is about tax considerations for forming a captive. Before we get to that, I would like to introduce a special guest today, Javier Ordóñez, tax partner at Baker McKenzie. Welcome, Javier.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for having me. A brief introduction about myself. Perhaps, as you mentioned, I'm a tax partner with Baker McKenzie in Mexico. I'm a lawyer admitted to practice in Mexico with a JD from Universidad Iberoamericana. After practicing in a local boutique firm about 21, 22 years ago, I joined Baker McKenzie, a global leading law firm with 77 offices around the world. After about 10 years of practicing in Mexico and undergoing certain postgraduate studies in the field of taxation, knowing a bit of cross-border transactions and international planning, I got the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. I studied an LLM in taxation. After that, I moved back to Mexico, practiced for another about 7 to 8 years, and then got the opportunity to be working for 2 to 3 years, 1 year permanent in the Baker McKenzie office in Miami. Then moved back as 5 years ago, and I'm back and based in Mexico City practicing for Baker. I basically focus my practice in the international planning and consulting for multinational enterprises, not only from a corporate income tax, but also VAT and other aspects for families, high net worth individuals and families, family-owned businesses that sometimes require a legal and tax advice when structuring and managing their wealth. This has led me to be proficient in the application of tax treaties, international rules affecting many different structures that are able to be set up to invest inbound. That means from outside to inside Mexico and outbound. So you have investments coming from Mexico to other countries. So you need that legal and tax expertise, and that includes working with and addressing the solutions that a trust company or a foundation or a fund to have multiple portfolio investments underneath that fund can allow a Mexican business to grow. And of course, that includes the insurance-based solutions such as a foreign insurance captive, which I regularly advise clients on.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. We know there are many important aspects for tax considerations in forming a captive. Would you expand a little more about that?
For sure. I think in general terms, when Latin American companies start thinking about setting up or are managing a captive, the first thing that should come to mind is when I am paying the premium to cover those risks that I decided to retain, is determined first, am I eligible or not to deduct the premium? So there are general and of course specific tax requirements in all of our Latin American countries that would apply. So we need to be very, very mindful of those general and tax specific requirements, such as making the payment, perhaps including, regulatory requirement, such as making the payment of the premium perhaps to a local fronting company, which is, I think, exactly what you're expert on, instead of just doing a premium payment directly to a foreign company, which could be non-deductible by definition. The three other aspects very important is the recently introduced general anti-avoidance rules that our Latin American countries have nowadays, following OECD guidelines, potential application of mandatory disclosure rules, because you may be getting a tax benefit or other type of benefit in a foreign jurisdiction by retaining this risk and allocating this amount of profits. And last but not least, transfer pricing regulations that could and should go along the actuarial feasibility analysis that a captive requires.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing. In your opinion, what would be good, valid reasons for setting up a captive and supporting its existence?
That is a great question, because the valid reasons, and I would frame it both from a business and economic standpoint, as opposed to merely tax standpoint, is a key aspect now to basically comply with those general anti-avoidance rules that our Latin countries nowadays require more and more and focus. Now tax authorities are focusing on the substance, and business reasons. So in regarding a captive, other than thinking of the pursuing a simply obtaining or achieving a tax benefit such as tax deferral, you need to consider other aspects such as the more risk coverage for your business according to the nature of that business, of course, and that will lead into the business being able to deduct the premium because it's business related. It is in connection with that business activity. The possibility to retain that risk, as I mentioned before, also to allocate those profits and retain those profits within the group. So at the end of the day, it is a financial savings for the group. Most companies will be able to determine the amount of premium that is reasonable based on fair market value studies from a transfer pricing standpoint, according to that actuarial analysis. So that is certainly a benefit that the captive offers, reducing costs, cutting or eliminating intermediary fees that usually apply in the traditional commercial insurance structures. So I think, and last but not least, is the self management of all that wealth that can be accumulated and kept safely within a group of companies.
Great, thank you. And why is it important to take into consideration and complying with local and or global transfer pricing regulations when setting up a captive?
Well, the captive at the end of the day will be part of a business group of entities, of the corporate group. So whether or not the payment is made directly to that foreign company, so whether or not we have a direct intercompany transaction, we most of the times, according to our LATAM legislations in the matter of transfer pricing, we will have the concept of group. We will fall into that concept. So from a transfer pricing standpoint, you need to basically support that the amount of premium is market, that this is equivalent or comparable to a premium that a commercial insurance would charge a local business to cover X, Y, or Z type of risk. And if that risk is never been insured by any local commercial company, then it is likely that the transfer pricing study will justify the need then for you to transact and enter into that transaction with the captive. And again, remembering the general regulatory requirement from a Latin American perspective to have a fronting, of course, you make the payment to the fronting, then the fronting company assigns and seats that, like through a retrocession of that premium to the foreign captive. Then at the end of the day, all that profit, the premium, the business generated that income at the captive level needs to be justified again within the group, that it is fair market value according to transfer pricing.
Wow, thank you. And we're almost at the finish of this episode, but I'd like to hear your final thoughts on this important topic around taxes and captives.
I think the most important aspect also is when thinking of setting up a captive, or perhaps companies that are already working with their own captive, is to nowadays become stronger in terms of supporting the structure, making it solid, ensure that they comply with all these substance requirements, that all the business reasons, economic, financial savings that they have, including the feasibility actuarial analysis, gets documented from a legal tax standpoint, and that they also are in certain communication, open dialogue with the local tax authorities, so that local tax authorities understand. First, of course, a business owner needs to understand that's their own captive structure, but also to be in certain communication with the tax authorities for them to understand what is really behind the captive company, what is the business reason, the objective pursued, the nature of the insurance retention and transfer and risk transfer to that foreign company, so that there are no questions or doubts, that there are no doubts lingering around tax authorities, especially also regarding the jurisdiction of choice of where that company is held. Important to consider whether that jurisdiction has a double tax treaty with the home country, where the Latin American business is located and generally operates, and also whether there is a tax information exchange agreement, so that the local tax authorities can communicate and exchange information with regards to that captive, and that let's say that you have the clear and green light to operate that in a transparent manner, which is the name of the game nowadays in carrying out transactions in a legal and tax compliant manner.
Thank you, Javier, for being our special guest today. It was so enlightening to hear about taxes and captives. And for all of you hearing us, don't forget to follow our AIG Latin America YouTube channel and stay tuned for our next episodes around captives.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.